And just give us a run up to where you were before.
Yeah.
It's
So
1941 in
I
Boston.
applied to the Navy Yard. I wanted to get into the sign department.
Right.
And I was told I couldn't get in there. It
Yeah.
was a locked situation. They had their own group. And it was civil service. And I couldn't get it if I can do something else. Am I mechanically inclined or what? I said, yes, I am sort of mechanically inclined. I use a grading machine, I use a key machine, the drill press. He says, well, the only thing we see...
Just 1 minute. I'm sorry. Hang on. The thing I was concerned with was background
So
noise.
they asked me what I could possibly do. So they said to me, the only place where we think we could put you in is in the outside machinists. That was called X38. But you'd have to get in at the bottom, which is a third-class helper.
Mm-hmm.
See, they had first-class machinists, second-class, and third-class. Then they had first-class helper, second, third-class. So I had to go in as a third-class helper. The third-class helper, all he does is carry the toolbox for the machinist.
Right.
Or if he sends you on an errand to go down to pick up some bolts or gaskets or whatever they need for the boat, I would go down there. So this fellow that I...
How old were you? Sorry to interrupt.
About 45.
Okay.
So this fellow, his name was Rakestraw, and he was a third-class machinist, and I worked together with him. The first two, there were 3 shifts they had: a day shift, an in-between shift, and a night shift. So I picked the in-between shift, which was from 3:30 to 11:30, because I wanted to keep my shop open.
Okay.
So Ann stayed in the shop. And when I got through there at 11:30, I could get home about 12:30, almost 1. I'd go to bed, sleep during the night as much as I could sleep, and get up in the morning at about 9, 10 o'clock and go into the shop. I put in about 3-4 hours. Then I'd go to the Navy Yard. It was a real drag from Dorchester to Charlestown Navy Yard. It was over an hour on the train. I had to go there and then come back home the same way. But I went, and the first 2 days was murder. We had 2 downpours both days, and I was drenched. When you get up in the subway, you got to walk to the pier. There's a pier where the shack was. There's where you punch your time clock, and then you go on the boat or whatever has to be done. I was drowned. It took about 10 to 15 minutes to walk over to the pier. There was no covering or anything.
Do you have an umbrella?
I was so disgusted. I didn't expect it to be that bad. I was so disgusted, but I carried on. A few weeks went by. I hated the job. I was working in an open boat. When it's mostly completed, you don't worry about toolboxes or tools dropping on your head. Everything is wide open there.
Right.
But I carried on, and one day my leading man, see, there's a leading man there was about 8 or 9 leading men in that shift. And my leading man had about 25 or 30 men in his group. So he got a new toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked over to him and I says, I see where all the other toolboxes have their names on, so to differentiate. I said, I could put the name on for you real nice. He says, can you do that? I told him I do sign painting, that's my trade.
Mm-hmm.
But I happened to get on here. So he gave me the toolbox for the name, and I put an extra special job on it.
Right.
And when he saw that toolbox, his eyes popped out. He said, you don't belong on the boat. He says, you come in the shack, and we'll give you a job as a timekeeper.
Okay.
But there was another fellow in there, his name was Kylie, who was a timekeeper, but he was a sickly fellow.
Uh-huh.
And that shack was a mess.
Yeah.
Everything was mixed up. They had one wall where they had kept all kinds of gaskets. The Casaco gaskets, metal gaskets, serrated gaskets. They were on nails and everything was all mixed up. Then they had bins that had all kinds of bolts. that you need for the machinery on the boat. They had bolts, then they had studs, then they had brass, they had Monel, and they had all kinds, and everything was mixed up. So he gave me the leeway. He said, you do what you think is right and see what you can make with this place. And I got to work. I started on the wall with the gaskets. I pulled out all the nails, and I painted the wall, and I separated the wall into 3 sections. One was for Sarco gaskets, one was metal gaskets, and one was for serrated gasket. But every gasket, you had to have the outside measurement and the hole in the middle, the inside measurement, and everything was mixed up. And I got my paints down and I labeled everything and I lined up all the gaskets the way they should be.
Right.
Because they used to come in, the machinist, to pick up something, and everything was all over. It took them a half hour or more to find what they really wanted. So I organized that. Then I went to the bins that had all the nuts and bolts. But I told them this is going to take a couple of weeks to do this. And they gave me 2 helpers to work with me. We took out all the bolts, the millions of them in there, and separated the bins just where they belong, and I labeled everything. Then we had a blueprint section there. But it's flat bins, open bins. You want this part of the boat, you had a main steam or main exhaust, you needed a blueprint to check on what you have to do. And blueprints were all over the place. I got a hold of a big piece of material above this cabinet, and I divided it into sections, and I labeled every one according to each bin. And I organized that. And then every leading man had so many men, and they had to look through the time every time who was a first-class machinist, who was a second-class machinist, and so on. And they used to go crazy. So once they had to get a setup together for a special job, and they wanted to have so many first-class machinists, so many helpers. And they took a few from each leading man, and they made one group to do that job. So they had to go fishing through all the time cards. So I hit on a scheme. I went over to my leading man and I explained it to him. He said, all right.
Okay.
We got a panel, a board, and I subdivided it into, I don't know, remember 8 or 9 leading men. Each leading man had his name on top, and each machinist or helper, I had a little card with 2 holes punched in it, and I put L hooks into the board, and I lined up all the men for each leading man, and I also made it so they should know who's a first class. I made the first class machinist with a little red spot on the end.
Right.
Second class machinist was an orange spot. And the first class machinist was a yellow spot. And on the helpers, the first class, I made a light green, then a medium green, and a dark green.
Yeah, look, kids.
So, and on the other side of the card, that was a gray color instead of a white. I also had the name on there. So when the time came when they punched the clock,
yeah,
I would look through who was absent, and I would go over on each leading man. And the guy was absent, I would turn the card over.
Right.
And they knew who was absent.
Yeah.
Who they got left as a first-class machinist. They knew just what they had.
Right.
So when the quarterman was the top man of all the leading men in that shift.
Yeah.
When he wanted a special job and he wanted certain people, he'd go over to that board and he'd look, this one is absent, and this one has 6 first-class machinists. We'll take 2 from them, and 2 from them. This one will take 1. And they knew what they were picking.
Yeah.
It was like a general going over to his map, and he knew where everything was situated.
Did you say I could stay
I made up that board.
It
It took me at least a month screwing all the hooks.
How long did you say I could
Let's let Grandpa finish the story, okay? And then we can talk about it. You can stay up until he finishes the story. I'll tell you that. Now go play. Go on.
That's all. That's part of the technique.
Yeah, I know.
He said
So
don't
these little cards,
Mm-hmm.
a hole on each side, you flip it right onto the two hooks. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he was absent, I would turn the card over on the same two holes.
Right.
But you'd know he was absent.
Right. He had his name on both sides.
And name on both sides, and the what he was, a place pass machine or a second. I
Right.
had the coloring on the ends on each one of them.
Right.
And we put up that board, and it went over big.
Right.
About 3 days later, I get a requisition from the day shift
Oh yeah.
that they want a board the same as this. They had about 15 leading men.
Yeah.
So that was a project that took another few months.
Right.
Screwing in all those hooks and putting them and lettering up all those little cards and putting them on, and it went over big.
Yeah.
And then they got so.
Oh, that's right. Robin's reminding me Lucas has to go to school tomorrow. So why don't you go ahead and do the toothbrush and whatever you got to do. You gonna read him a story?
And then for all the jobs that had to be done, you had to have a requisition, a slip. And each slip had to be the job order number. Say for main steam was 4805, for lube oil was 4802. So,
Right.
And that was handed to me too, to take care of it. After a while, I knew all those job orders by not by heart.
Yeah.
Then they had a machinery book there. For every piece of machinery that was put on the boat, they designated a page for it.
return the
Showed the
story.
logo of the company that made the machine.
I'm
Yeah.
about to return.
Don't interrupt.
And
But
also
Tom
the
wants
description of
to
how many
return. He
RPMs.
has to do his book.
I know
No,
that.
I'm gonna do it tonight.
No,
Lucas.
his grandpa's gonna read it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Just a little bit longer.
Okay.
So,
Did you do his eye drops yet?
No, come on, Lucas.
the fellow on the day shift, the timekeeper, used to take care of the books.
Yeah.
So one day I approached the leading man. I says, I can make this a better looking book than what you have there. And I would put the logo on, letter it up, and it fits it up real nice.
Yeah.
And it went over this.
Right.
You want some creamery?
Then it reached a stage where they depended on me for everything.
Uh-huh.
If a check, the guys would get a check and the amount didn't seem right, they would say, go see Hi-Yo Silver. They used to call me Hi-Yo Silverstein.
Right.
Hi-Yo Silver.
Right.
So I was doing almost everything there.
Yeah.
And every 3 months, the leading man uses discretion who he wants to put in for a raise, like changing your third class helper, you could become a second class helper. You know what we started, the pay was 66 cents an hour
Wow.
for third class helper.
This is 1941.
Yeah. And the second class helper got 72 cents, and the first class helper got 78 cents. A third class machinist jumped to $1.16 already. See? So every time they sent in for ratings, I got a rating.
Is that right?
Without holding a tool.
Right.
And when I left the Navy Yard, I was a third class machinist. And here's another thing. They had a building called X31, which was called inside machinist. See, I was on the outside machinist.
Yeah.
So there was a fellow there by the name of Myers, and he took care of the whole thing. He's from civil service.
Yeah.
And he took care of the whole department. And he was a Jewish boy too.
Uh-huh.
And most of the leading men, I hate to say it, you're not Jewish, but they hated the Jews.
That was a long time ago.
We shouldn't put that in.
Why not?
I would tell them the truth. They would talk in front of me
Yeah.
against the Jews, and they knew I was Jewish.
Yeah.
They hated the Jews. There came a job, see, like you had to do a job down in the bilges of the boat in the middle of the winter with no heat, and they would bundle up with towels and rags to keep warm. Just have your nose sticking out. Who do you think they picked first for the jobs? Jewish.
Oh, Julie, put it in.
Maybe that was the way it was.
But they respected me.
Yeah.
Hold them more. Even though they didn't respect the others, they respected me.
I want to see the vitamins.
And I worked there for a year and a half until my foot went.
Yeah.
On account of the dampness that comes in the
Yes.
Terrible. But I liked my job. I kept busy. I saved them thousands of hours with the organization that I had there.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
They would come in for a blueprint. Everything was right there. If anybody didn't put back the blueprint, they'd hear from me.